Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, and you know what? This is the first time this has ever happened, but I'm here on my own just to talk to you all about the WNBA. We have a lot going on. We are well into the second half of the season. There was an exciting All-Star game that happened. A lot of things happened around that. We already talked about that over on YouTube if you want to check that out. But, it was an amazing first half, but the second half is even more amazing. Last night, we had an amazing game between the Lynx and the Liberty. It was the first time that they had matched up this season. And the Lynx, who are number one right now, they came out on top. So one of those games that we're looking forward to. Not only they're going to be playing them again pretty soon here. Nafisa Collier even said, like, it's kind of weird that we're playing them so late in the season and then we're playing them again and again, but definitely looking forward to those matchups. And before we get into the hottest news that is happening right now in the W, I have to mention that we are nominated for an amazing award. It's the Best Black Hosted Podcast Award in the People's Choice Podcast Awards category. So make sure that you're all subscribed over on YouTube, because that's where we're going to get you locked in with all that information on how you can vote. And also just, you got to stay connected with us, because we have shows like this. We're live right now on network, but we also have live shows on YouTube all of the time. So you want to get locked in so that you know exactly when those are going to come on. And don't you want to hang out with us? It's usually myself and Ashley Nicole Moss, but we have amazing guests all the time. And we have to talk W, because that is the hottest thing going right now, as my shirt is noted. But let's jump in. We talked a little bit about the Liberty, and yes, they did have a loss last night to the Lynx, but they had an amazing addition recently in Emma Meesseman. Emma Meesseman, for those who don't know, she's played in the EuroLeague. She's been out of the W for some time now, but she's a finals MVP, a WNBA champion, two-time Eurobasket gold medalist, a EuroLeague MVP, and she's also already played with some of the players that are already on the team right now, which is important. She's played with Stewie, Jonquil Jones, and Natasha Cloud at points, and she's also been coached by Sandy Brondello. So she's very familiar with this team. It's a team that is obviously on the quest for a repeat, as they were the champions last year. And it's just really amazing when you look at the team that they already have. They're really stacked. They are riddled with injuries right now. That's an important note. Cloud has been out because she hasn't been feeling the best. I want to say she played a little bit last night, but then in addition to that, Stewie is out. She has a bone bruise, so she will definitely be out for a while. I think rest is really important when you're looking at this team going down the stretch. They just got Jonquil Jones back, and she has been giving fantastic numbers in minutes, but they're not, I guess, at full capacity right now because of the injuries that they have. But with this addition of Emma Meesseman, it's incredible. You already have this stacked team. You have a team that won the championship last year, and then you add a player like this. Now, it's important to note that she will not be on the team until her visa goes through. It's said that it should be sometime this weekend. Again, we don't necessarily know that. That was just reported. But when she, is added to this team, it's going to be great. The front court is going to be so much, and it's hard to even say that it's going to be so much better because it's already fantastic. But she is definitely an amazing pickup for this team. Something that not a lot of people saw coming, but I will tell you that she was in the running to be on 3 teams. She picked the Liberty, but the Phoenix Mercury and then also the Lynx were in the conversation, which the Lynx are the number 1 team right now. The Liberty are the number 2 team. And it was something that people asked the coach about. Coach Cheryl Reeves said, and she just made it short and sweet to let everybody know that she made the wrong choice. And she made no qualms about that. But when it comes to the Liberty and the addition of Meesseman to this team, it's only up from here. Like I said, they lost the Lynx last night. It actually wasn't by a big margin, despite the injuries that they had. But with that addition, the sky is literally the limit for the Liberty. Once they get back from these injuries, once she's on the team, the fact that they were even able to pull off having her on the team with the cap space that they had is just phenomenal. So definitely looking forward to seeing the addition of Emma Meesseman. And another thing that we must talk about is Cameron Brink. Cameron Brink, as we know, was out. She had an injury. She tore her ACL last year after just playing, I believe, in 15 games. She was doing fantastic in her rookie season. It was really hard to see her go down. And, it's one of those things where you see a player who has so much potential and is already making a mark in the league. And then, unfortunately, she got injured and had to rehab, but she came back. It was her first game back. She definitely was a little nervous. She actually said herself, I definitely was a little nervous at first, but once I got in, it felt like riding a bike. Great day, 10 out of 10. And then her coach, Lynn Roberts, also said, I thought she did a good job. To be honest, she was more comfortable out there than I anticipated her to be, just because of how long she's been out and coming in mid-season. The Sparks right now, they're 6-4 in the last 10, riding a 5-game winning streak before loss to Vegas on Tuesday. And, they're doing really well. And the addition of Brink is definitely something that we need to talk about. And I actually want to talk about it with somebody that we know and love. She's been on the show many times, and that is WNBA analyst and CBS Sports writer, Arike Ayala. Arike, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, sis. Thanks for having me. Listen, Cam Brink, I heard you talking about Cam, and it can be tough bouncing back from an injury, especially being out for so long. The good thing is that, she's on the younger side, so,
Yes.
she can have probably bounce back. And I think this is an interesting time, right, for Cam to be coming back. We know that the Los Angeles Sparks have put together a few wins here, and so I think this is fantastic. And I get the sense from what we've been hearing from Sparks camp that they also aren't looking to rush Brink back, which I think is huge. We know that injuries have been a part of the conversation, quite honestly, when it comes to the WNBA. And, I think we might get to that a little bit later. But, this is a huge get for the Sparks, especially given that they've been able to figure things out without Brink.
Yeah, absolutely. And, she looked really good, like we just talked about in her first game back. She kind of shook off the nervousness, which is always important after being out for that long and really hard thing to do. But when you look at this team, and this is going to be something that we talk about when we come back, Arike, but when you look at this team, they have all of the pieces. They have players that are playing really well. They have a really good, young core. Then they also add Cameron Brink back. I wonder if it's something when as the trade deadline approaches that they might be looking to make a little move. So we're going to talk about that trade deadline and who we think are going to make moves when we come back right here on We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. Welcome back to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, here with Arike Ayala. And as promised, we're going to talk about the trade deadline that is coming up in the W. It's August 7th at 3 p.m. ET. So make sure that you keep that on your calendars, because I think it's going to get a little crazy leading up to that. But let's talk the Sparks for a minute. We just talked about Cam Brink coming back. They have this really, young core. They're also led by Kelsey Plum, a vet to this league who's obviously always been an exciting player that we love to watch. They have won a lot of games as of late. Do you think that they kind of stir things up and change anything here as the trade deadline, comes so close?
It's interesting because as you mentioned, they have a young core. And so I think that they could make a move if they want to get serious, if there is kind of a foundational approach from the organization that they need to be in playoff contention as soon as possible, like immediately, that's a non-negotiable, then maybe we'll see them make a move. But quite honestly, I think that there has been a grit factor here for this Sparks team that I've talked about on CBS Sports HQ a few times. I think also that there have been health implications. They've had injuries. We saw that Ray Burrell had been out for a minute, Rakia Jackson, and of course the aforementioned Cam Brink. For me, I'm not sure if it's worth disrupting the young core to make a trade at the deadline for this season. I think maybe this year, new coaching staff, as you mentioned, Plum coming in, maybe this is re-evaluating where the organization is comparative to the field. And then maybe in the off season, the Sparks are a little more active.
Well, speaking of a young core, we have the Dallas Wings, who are definitely rebuilding. They have a new coach, they have a lot of new players, they have Paige Beckers, and they also have Arike Ogunbowale. She is a vet. She is an all-star. She is all of the things. We know her to be an amazing player. She has and she will continue to be. But there are a lot of people saying that she is going to be in a trade of some sort. What do you think about this? And do you think that it's good for the Wings? And is it good for her?
Yeah, this one is so interesting because I think a lot of people are pointing to that perhaps Paige Beckers and Arike Ogunbowale aren't necessarily the backcourt duo that you want. There was a lot of conversation about Arike early on in the season. Her efficiency numbers, or percentage more specifically, can be not so great comparative to what you might expect. That has been a part of her game. And when Arike is hitting clutch shots, you don't question why she's on your squad. Now, I think that can she be a playmaker alongside Paige Beckers? Should Paige Beckers be the main playmaker and open up Arike at the 2, which I think both are more of their natural positions? Is there someone else if you want to make Beckers the new face of the team that maybe can come in? I just don't know. I don't know that all of Dallas's problems get solved if they trade Arike. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. I still think this is an all-star caliber player, someone that again can give you really gritty minutes, hit shots in the clutch. So for me, maybe there are other elements on this Dallas team that need to be moved before you really start moving Arike, in my opinion, prematurely. Not saying that Paige Beckers won't be a fantastic player. I think we're already seeing that. And I just don't know what you're looking for in return. And are you then going to rebuild a roster now that you lose a veteran presence in your backcourt with Arike? Are you going to go younger? Are you going to bring in another vet? But is there another vet that's available or that could work in a trade that's going to make this Dallas team significantly and immediately better than what they have right now with Ogunbowale? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the player that Arike is, there is nothing, in my opinion, that you could move right now or that could be moved that would be worth doing that. She's such a phenomenal player. And like you said, there are so many other things that need to be looked at on this Wings team that could be changed to make this team better that I don't think you even entertain it, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely we're going to keep a lookout to see what happens with Arike, but I don't think you should do anything. I think you should keep her on the team and work some other things out for sure. Now, One team that has been working things out all season in a great way are the Mystics. A lot of people didn't really think that they would be where they're at right now and didn't really expect, the rookie duo with Iriafen and Citron to be such an amazing duo, right? They have Sykes, who is leading that team in amazing ways, and they're just in a really good spot as far as where they want the franchise to go, in my opinion. But a lot of people are saying that Aaliyah Edwards is a possible fit for other teams, and that it actually might be better for her to be on other teams as well, because she hasn't necessarily been a huge part of the system so far since being with the Mystics. Maybe it hasn't panned out in the ways that they thought that it would. They also announced today that she'd be out with a wrist injury too, which I think is a factor in all of this. But when you look at the Mystics and where they're at, and Aaliyah Edwards, what are your thoughts on a trade for her?
This is something that we've been hearing throughout the season, and people pointing to Edwards maybe not getting the minutes that she could or making the impact that she could. But as you mentioned, another injury, she had been out with injury at the beginning of the season. And I think maybe this is more her impact, I guess, on the Mystics squad this year might be more just that she's not 100% physically. She's not been feeling well. She's been dealing with nagging injuries. This is a young star, an Olympian with the Canadian Basketball Organization and Federation, obviously comes from the Yukon pedigree. And I think that if it's not working out with the Mystics, which I'm not convinced that that is what's going on here, yes, I think she could make a compelling player to engage in a trade. Then you have to look at fit. Are there teams that are looking for a little bit more of a dynamic player, which also is on the younger side, still on a rookie contract, to help bolster what they're doing? And I think there might be some teams out there. But as far as Edwards, listen, Washington is going to be a conversation as an organization at the trade deadline, because they're not, they are kind of in a rebuild. That being said, I think they're performing a little bit better than people maybe thought that they would, maybe pushing for that spot. So does that also impact if they're looking to make a trade? But if Edwards is on the table, again, who are you replacing as Washington? Who are you replacing her with? And how do you make sure that that's going to put the organization in a position to be better than they are right now, whether that's through trade assets or through bringing in a different player?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different teams that people are talking about. I know one was Golden State, because they are making a push to make the playoffs for the first time, a expansion team being in the playoffs for the first time in their inaugural season. But I don't even know if they want to kind of, mix up what they have going on. I know that Kayla Thornton is out, but they're still stepping up and winning these games. So, it's another just kind of question mark. It's going to be hard to make a trade on any of these teams. But really quick before we go, Marina Mabrey, she asked for a trade. Do you think she'll get one?
Listen, I don't even, is Mabrey still looking for a trade? People, the fans looking at social media might be asking if that's even something that Mabrey still wants to do. This is a Connecticut Sun team that we know is not going to be making a playoff push this season. Haven't looked particularly well. I think it's just a matter of, does Mabrey see herself in the vision moving forward on this squad? Obviously, the answer was no coming into this season. Have things changed? Where is she at when it comes to her career? And, I think people have put this out there, not that I necessarily subscribe to it, but is this kind of like, the basketball player that cried wolf, always trying to look to move and navigate from one team to another? At some point, especially I think with the way the league is going, she might need to just settle in and just go with the flow, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to go with the flow and watch whatever happens in this trade deadline. But when we come back, we have to talk about some certified buckets, some guaranteed buckets. We're going to talk about people that we know are always going to come through and that are underrated in this league. So make sure you come back right after this break at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. Welcome back to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm here with Arike Ayala. And Arike, it is time for something we love to do every single week, and that is our Guarantee of the Week, presented by AT&T. And this week, we're going to be breaking down some of the underrated players who are guaranteed buckets in this league, but don't really get the recognition that they deserve. So when I talk about underrated players, who comes to mind for you, Arike?
Ooh, this is such an interesting question, right? Because sometimes I think it really does depend on maybe the market that they're in, maybe the players that they're playing amongst to just get more national pull. But one player that comes up for me, I'll give you two actually off the hop. One is Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell has been holding down the Indiana Fever since she was drafted to the Indiana Fever. And although obviously Caitlin Clark is such a huge draw, such a compelling player to watch when she's healthy for this Fever squad, we saw even last year, Alicia, that at the back end of the All-Star / Olympic break, when Mitchell and Clark started working well together, when they started finding their rhythm, that's when we were like, oh, dang, yeah, this might be a Fever squad that's really looking to push for a playoff spot in Clark's rookie year, and did. And so I got to go with Mitchell. I think also someone who I want to talk about a little bit is Kayla McBride. And if you ain't know she was a walking bucket, Kayla McBuckets, then I don't know, maybe you should have checked out how she performed against the New York Liberty defending champions last night. So those two for me for sure.
Yeah, Kayla McBride last night was 24, 3-5, literally, in that win that they had last night. And I think what's really amazing about Kayla is that she has this veteran leadership too that is just integral for the team. When you see the cohesiveness of that team and that everybody steps up on any given night, even when they're not playing their best game, they contribute in ways that do culminate for the win. A lot of that has to do with Kayla. She's just open, willing to work. She puts people in the best positions for them to win. She leads people to be their best. And I think that is a trait, an underrated trait that this underrated player has. And Kayla is just, she's a star. She obviously has a great stat line, like we read earlier. But I think one of the biggest things she does that people don't see is what she does to make that team come together and be who they are. I mean, she's averaging 14 points, 3.2 assists, and 1.2 steals, 37.4% shooting from the three. But the stat line that you don't really see is just what she does as a leader. And I think that that is absolutely invaluable. I wanted to go back to Kelsey Mitchell for a minute. Lisa Leslie, who's a We Need to Talk host, as well as obviously being a WNBA legend and all of the things. She has a podcast called Between the Lines, and she had this to say, Kelsey Mitchell, even though she's on your guys' team, and she was talking to Lexi Hull at this time, you guys have the biggest spotlight, she's still the most underrated player. When you have Lisa Leslie saying something like this, okay, I mean, you don't really need anything else, but Lexi actually agreed and co-signed and said, she's one of the most athletic, quickest players I've ever seen. The way she can move through a line of people and still get to the rim and still get a shot off is impressive. And when you look at this team that does not have Caitlin Clark, but they are still finding ways to win, and in a lot of ways becoming a great team without Caitlin. I'm not saying that Caitlin isn't important. Don't come for me. But they are finding ways to win and be a great team without her in her absence. Kelsey Mitchell is a huge part of that. So 100%. I could not agree with you more. Nneka Ogwumike is also somebody that comes to mind as underrated. I mean, listen, 14 years in the league, WNBA champion, rookie of the year, MVP, 10 All-Star appearances. I mean, there's literally not much that she has accomplished. She has an ability to score and defend at all levels. But one thing that I think is very underrated about her is that she has also been, they call her Madam President. She's been the president of the WNPBA for the Players Association, I should say, rather, since 2016, and balancing all of that, being a great player on the court, night in and night out, but also like having a new CBA coming up that you're helping to negotiate and make sure that it's historic and it puts the players in the best place moving forward. She has to be in the conversation for being underrated, though. And everything that she does, I don't think she gets enough recognition.
And it's some of what she does is just so compelling and important to the stability of this league, and particularly for the efficacy, right, of the Players Association and thus its players, that I think that's where the conversation all often goes with NECA. And she herself has been one to say that, when she gets between the lines and is on the court competing for her team, now the Seattle Storm, she wants to be seen as a baller, as a basketball player, and not necessarily always Madam President. And I think she definitely leaned into her basketball side, right, playing against Dallas, and she felt some kind of way about one of the Dallas Post players not putting some respect on her, maybe getting a little bit, too aggressive, and she clapped back. But 17 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, and 2.2 assists. NECA is really helping to stabilize this Seattle Storm team. I think she did that last year, is doing even better this year. And so, yes, absolutely NECA Ogumike for me.
Yeah, well, all of these players, please put some respect on their name. They shouldn't be as underrated as they are, and definitely are doing amazing things for their respective teams. But we have some things that we need to talk about in the W, some hot takes, some spicy things that we need to talk about. And we're going to get into that right after this break. So make sure you come right back to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. Welcome back to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. Now, Arike, before the break, we talked about that we had to have a spicy conversation about something that everyone is talking about in the league, and that are the injuries. I mean, from Breanna Stewart to Kayla Thornton to Caitlin Clark, the list goes on and on. There are so many players that are on the mend right now. And when you look at this and you look at all of the names that are not even playing right now because of injury, is this the most injury-ridden season that the WNBA has ever had?
That's so interesting because obviously injuries are part of sports. We just have to, place that out there. You're going to see injuries. And I think that when you look at the injuries, how they've compounded, I think Caitlin Clark honestly stands out because she has had multiple injuries in a singular season. Does that kind of point to maybe a conversation? I think a lot of people, for better or worse, anytime Caitlin Clark is involved in things, there's always larger conversations that come. And I think, again, Clark being out multiple times this season has led people to wonder, what's kind of going on here? Does it have to do with the schedule? Does it have to do with something that we've talked about before with Tarika Foster-Brasby with regard to expanding roster size comparative to expansion teams, where I think I've gone on the record multiple times with, I would love to see more roster spots per team, and maybe this is one of the reasons why. So most injuries in history, I don't know, maybe it's just that there are a lot of high profile players that are getting that have been injured this season, and the WNBA, we're following the WNBA in a different way than we have historically. So I think that's probably more of what it is. I also think that what we see athletes do and how they train their bodies and what is necessary to be an elite level athlete in 2025 is different than it was even just 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But when you look at the schedule that these women have with these games, I mean, listen, that the average number of days between games is just 2.7, right? So you mentioned that they added games to this season. Just to give you perspective, in 2021, the average numbers of days off in between were 4. right? And so when you look at this, and the games have increased by 29% since
Mm.
2019. When you look at this, how does your body even recover? You know,
Right.
so when your body can't even recover, that increases, just everything to kind of like make you a prime target for injury, right? If you have no recovery, if you have no rest, if you have no downtime. I mean, even we just came back from All-Star and they were literally, it felt like they were playing moments after the All-Star break ended, and they were. I think they had
Hey.
maybe under 2 days. And that's
Mm.
a grueling time, right? All-Star, not only are you participating in the game, but you're also going to the skills challenge. You have all these appearances. You're going nonstop. And just think about bouncing back after that, let alone game after game after game after game. And so when your body can't recover, injuries are going to happen. It's just inevitable. Your body needs rest, it's imperative. And so when I think about adding teams and adding even more games and travel to the schedule, you have to add more time. You can't decrease this anymore and expect for it not to even be worse. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this, it's like I don't really see an end to it because you're adding teams, which is great. We need expansion, but if you're not adding more time, if you're not adding more like rest during travel days and all of this, like, how do
Mhm.
you expect this to get better and not worse?
Yeah, and then you add the fact that we have multiple players and coaches that have talked about the physicality. Now, is that ramping up? Is it just that it's not being officiated? I mean, officiating has been a conversation in and around the WNBA for several years now, and you and I were at All-Star weekend in Indianapolis, and Kathy Engelbert was asked about officiating. And so the reason that I bring that up is because if the game is being more physical, which I think you could definitely point to, again, Becky Hammon saying the physicality is, quote, out of control. Freedom of movement is a joke, is what the Las Vegas Aces head coach had to say. No freedom of movement. It's not basketball, it's rugby. So she's talking about a knockdown, drag out style of quote unquote basketball, just to use her terminology, maybe not being officiated the way that it should. We alluded to NECA getting a little heated in a game against Dallas. And how does that also impact recovery when you've got bangs and bruises that aren't necessarily being called, so you're playing through them? If we look at Breanna Stewart, she has a bone bruise, so no ligament damage, nothing, that should keep her out indefinitely, something that, again, just rest is going to take care of. But on the play preceding her asking for a sub and saying that she needed to substitute out, I mean, do we look at the contact there? Was it on that layup that did she make contact with someone? Sometimes it's even your own teammate, but things like that, the wear and tear not being officiated properly, according to what a lot of the players are saying, compounded by, as you mentioned, there are more games, 29%, the most increase that we've seen across most, sports, professional sports. And you don't have extra players that you can sub in and sub out. Just to even give 5 more minutes a game, 5 more minutes for these players to get some recovery. I mean, that those are all, again, compounding things that, how is it going to impact what we're seeing from the league moving forward if these are constant pain points, no pun intended, right now for players?
When you talk about Becky Hammon in the comments that she made, I just want to say Stephanie White also had something to say about Caitlin Clark. She said, someone who has the ball in her hands as much as Caitlin, the physicality that she's experienced for 40 minutes, it causes you to load differently,
Mm.
explode differently, accelerate and decelerate differently. It's not the free-flowing movement that we want to see. I think all of those things at times, while it might not be one blow or another, over time can contribute to that. That's why freedom of movement is a huge emphasis from our coach's standpoint when we have the conversations on the league level. Can you point it out to one thing or another? No, but I do think the physicality with which teams are able to play with her is a factor. And so all of these things in tow, right? Physicality, like no days off and rest, is definitely something that the league should be assessing right now. If you're looking at all the expansion that is coming, even the rest of the season that we're having right now, it needs to be addressed because the players are out there doing this every night. They're the reason why we have this league and they're pushing things forward. So they have to be healthy. So we're definitely going to keep tabs on the physicality, on the injuries, and on just the games played moving forward. It's something that we will definitely talk about right here on We Need to Talk Now by AT&T. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about some spicy things that are happening in the W right now. So stay tuned. Welcome back to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. Now, Erica, we talked about a little spicy comments that have been happening, and something happened last night that we need to talk about as well, but we're going to talk about a little fair or foul here, okay? One thing that happened with at WNBA All-Star that Candace Parker had some comments about, and then we're also going to talk about the booing of DeWanna Bonner last night when she returned back to Indiana. But first, Candace Parker and Aaliyah Boston, they have a podcast called Post Moves that they just started. They launched it at All-Star, as a matter of fact. And in regards to the WNBA All-Star game, Candace said that, with the pay us what you owe us shirt, she said, y'all cannot come out there with those shirts on, pay us what you owe us, and then do that in the All-Star game. So referring to the actual play of the All-Star game. And then co-host Aaliyah Boston, she got right back at her, which I actually loved because it's hard to go right back at Candace Parker, okay? But she said, we come out here every single night and we show why we deserve the money we deserve. An All-Star game where we have another game in 2 days, I think that is okay to just go out there and hoop and have some fun. Because on Tuesday, we were back at it and we were playing and we were showing once again why we deserve to get paid. Now, when you look at these two opinions, who's fair and who's foul here, Erica?
I'm definitely going to say that Aaliyah Boston made a fair point. It's like, listen, defense is optional in most all-star games across professional sports. And I think her point was right on track. And it goes to what we were talking about right earlier on the show, that the schedule is condensed, more games are added. We're seeing injuries pile up, to the note that there were certain players players who were voted all-stars that could not participate, including Boston's teammate, Caitlin Clark, right? So I think that she's absolutely fair in, as you said, kind of clapping back and stepping into her voice when it came to what CP3 was saying, in that, yeah, like we were out there having fun. We know they definitely had fun outside of All-Star Weekend, or I should say the performances on the court, between some of the live streaming and the parties and all of that. So yeah, I'm with her. It was not the most enjoyable game. So I think Candace Parker makes a fair point there. But I don't know, is it like, what's between fair and foul when it comes to, maybe, I don't know, a vet kind of trying to tell Aaliyah how she and the active crew should feel? I don't know. And then like the fact that this was attached to the conversation regarding the collective bargaining agreement, I think you can have, I think that you can have a conversation about whether you think players should be paid or not. Do I agree that All-Star was necessarily going to change minds, just kind of given how All-Star games go? Oh, I don't think so. But I can see where Candace Parker is coming from. I just don't personally agree.
Yeah, I think there's a little fairness on both sides. Like you said, I don't necessarily agree with Candace's overall opinion that it lessens almost, and I'm not trying to put words in her mouth, but this is just what I gathered from watching it, that it lessened the effectiveness of the stance that they took with the shirt. I don't agree with that. I mean, that statement was everywhere. The moment that they came out in those shirts, we knew exactly where they stood, and everybody took note. They even had people chanting with signs and everything at the end, and they're doing that in respective cities now. People
Yes.
are coming to the games with that statement either on
Lynx
them or
versus
the
Liberty.
sign. Yeah,
Hmm.
and so you know exactly where the players stand. Yes, the game wasn't that great, right? But the vibes, as Aaliyah Boston also pointed out too, were real. They were high. People had a great time. It was the best All-Star I've ever been to. So certainly, they accomplished what they came to do, in my opinion.
Agree. Agree.
Now, we can't get out of this show, agreed for show. Can't get out of this show without talking about something that happened last night. DeWanna Bonner returns to Indiana and is met by boos. Kalia Copper called it distasteful. There was a lot of conversation around this. What are your thoughts when you see this vet, this like legend in the game, going out there and being booed?
I mean, I wouldn't do it. I get it. She left Indiana. I mean, but she also left Phoenix at one point, and now she's back. And I mean, Indiana getting a little hurt over this, a hurt heart space when she didn't contribute very much. She wasn't there for a very long time. And it just seemed like for both parties that it wasn't a good fit. I don't really know why we boo and sis. You know what I'm saying? Indiana still doing all right in a playoff position. I think they figured out their rotations, which was huge and was not happening when Bonner was there. So I don't know. It couldn't be me. I think players, athletes know they might get booed. It just wouldn't have been something that I did. And I think it's also fair that Ka stood up for her current teammate.
Yeah, put some respect on DB's name, okay? She's a veteran in this league. She has accomplished so many things, and she made a decision for herself that has panned out for her and for Indiana. So put some respect on her name. Don't boo her. I wouldn't be the one either. But what I do want you guys to do is head over to our YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe. We have a QR code right here. You can be connected with us on every level. And you want to connect with us right here on We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. And we'll see you on the next show.